Hello, hello, theatrics, and welcome to another edition of the Theatric Dyspraxic podcast with me, the Theatric Dyspraxic. Today we will be shedding the spotlight on comedy with dyspraxic comedian Adam Morrison Jones. Well, he's a comedian who happens to have dyspraxia. He doesn't bill himself as a dyspraxic comedian. But nevertheless, he is a successful English entertainer from Dover, also known as Hellfire Corner, and has been performing for over 10 years, playing everywhere from bingo halls to rock concerts. Hey, I played a bingo caller in a show once. He has recently
Wow.
performed in Edinburgh, Brighton, Hastings, and Faversham. He has won several awards, including the Deal Radio's Best New Act 2016, Gigalent's Best Comedian 2017, and has received praise from all over the comedy circuit. Included in the description will be his YouTube channel, Twitter handle, as well as some footage from some of his live performances for anyone who would like to check that out. And since comedy is something that is very close to my heart, and we do share a love of performing, I'm happy to share the stage with Adam Morrison Jones. Welcome.
Wow, thank you very much. That was a lovely introduction.
Oh, thank you. Those
I
are
just
always
felt really, really warm. I was like, oh, wow, who is this guy? I thought, it's me. That's
it's,
brilliant.
it's the theatric
I thought he best be good. Exactly, man.
Those are
Now I'm
always
excited to be on here and chat.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. This is the first interview of 2021 for me. So
Oh, nice.
welcome, welcome. So
How's it been over your side of the pond with the COVID? Is it still all locked down over there, or?
well, it seems that in the UK, I've heard from my UK friends, I've heard that they've recently gone back into like another lockdown.
Yeah,
But here in America, I mean, it really depends on which part of the states you're in. I know in California it's still pretty strict, but
yeah,
where I live in Texas, it people really aren't taking the precautions that they probably should. It could be that we're a red state and there's a lot of people maybe they don't believe in the severity of the pandemic.
yeah.
But my family and I, we pretty much uphold the the guidelines as much. We basically are quarantining. The only time I ever really go out is to take walks and possibly go to the store sometimes with my dad, but otherwise, yeah, we're pretty much we're pretty much shut-ins at
Yeah.
this point, which I do miss.
I feel you.
How is it over there with the
It
pandemic?
is. It's just. It's such a crazy time at the moment as well, isn't it? Of just that whole being like stuck in with your own thoughts for quite a lot of the time when you used to going out and like as you are like performing and doing stuff. It's taken a lot of getting used to. I'll give it that.
Well, as a performer, and in your case, being a comedian, that's sort of how you make your living. It's telling me the internet is unstable, so I apologize if I cut out at any point.
Yeah, it's all right.
But being a comedian, and I'm not a professional actor. I've just done like community theater and stuff. But even then, like having the theaters closed and not being able to do plays, I was actually doing a British farce, which I
Oh
was
wow.
really enjoying doing last year, but we had to cancel it because of the pandemic, and I haven't been able to do a show since because they're not opening up the theaters for a while. But as somebody who does that for a living, and you kind of that's what you do, go to
Yeah.
different places to perform, it must have been a little bit difficult.
This year, like, well, not this year. We're in a new year now. Last year was really hard. Like, so I got a job when it kicked in, when things got bad, working for a supermarket chain for 3 months. And then for a few months after that, I went to be an entertainment manager in an old people's home. So it's been a big change as well. And the other thing as well, having dyspraxia, you like my mind overacts quite a lot.
Right.
So it's nice to get out on a stage or have a walk because then you can kind of just feel like a bit more relaxed. So I've really realised over the last year that the stage was kind of the place of where I was calm. of the calmest and the most relaxed I've been. It's weird when you look at it, isn't it? As well, of going, hold on a minute, that was the place where I was like calm and relaxed, and that isn't the thing I can do at the moment, which is
Well,
sad. But it's going to be special when they happen again.
I relate to that so much because it's the same with me with performing, with acting.
Yeah,
There's never been a place anywhere in my life, I don't think, that where I felt more in control and more calm and just in my space, you know.
yeah,
In every other place, I'm always insecure, I'm always self-conscious about something. But whenever I'm in theater, when I'm doing rehearsals or whenever I'm performing and just on that stage, everything is just everything just kind of comes together. Everything is collected. I'm calm and I'm confident. And it's
yeah,
kind of funny because the only place that I have ever like attracted people has really been doing theater. You know, whether
mm,
it's romantically or just friends and stuff like that, where people look at me and they're like impressed by me and they're like, "Oh, that's the kind of guy I want to be around." It's only been whenever they've seen me in on that stage because I can be that guy, you know, that part of you that comes out.
I I I think that's a very like that's the thing with dyspraxia as well. Like I had therapy about 4 years ago, just to kind of make myself a bit better as a person. And one of the things that come up of going, the reason you're so uncomfortable and awkward in situations is because like most of the time you don't have that control over your body. So of course you're not gonna like be secure in yourself all that time, is because every now and then you'll just drop something. And when you're on stage, you're being someone else. You're not being, your mind's just stopped for that period of time, hasn't it? Where you're someone else, you're in another space. And for me, that's what I love about comedy. When you're in the zone, you're on the stage, you're telling jokes, you're talking to the audience, you're just there. And it's almost like time stands still and everything else kind of fades away for that moment. And the same as well. Like that's the only time where like people look and go, do you know what, this guy, there's something about him.
Well, you also have a sense of power too. Whenever you're in front, you're
Yeah.
like in command of the audience. They're looking at you, and you're putting on the show. And I don't know if this is the case with you, but for me, it's all like I can kind of, if something doesn't, if something kind of veers off a little bit, I
Yeah.
could always cling to the material. And I don't know if that's how it is for you. I do enjoy like being loose in front of an audience and things like that, which you don't do as much with acting as you do with comedy, I'm sure. But do you ever find that like if something does happen to be, if something happens to kind of fall a little bit off, do you ever just find yourself, you're like, well, I can always cling to my jokes and I can just do that and everything will
Yeah.
still be fine?
100%, 100%. The thing is with that as well is, as long as you've got your set, as long as you've got a solid set, as you're saying, like you're going down. The way to look at comedy, someone said to me once, is when you're doing a show, it's like you're walking down a road, but on your road, you're turning on different lamps. So you turn on different street lights, and all of those street lights are a laugh. And you've got to turn on all the laughs till you get to the end. But the key is to go off the road as many times as possible, but coming back on. And that really stuck with me as well. That whole kind of, oh, I can go and talk to an audience member, but if that doesn't work, I can come back and use a bit of material or something I've devised myself. And yeah, it's a great sense of kind of like, just it gives you that sense of power, I think might be the word for it.
It's interesting too because in the case of comedy, and obviously I've never performed stand up. When I was younger, I had a little bit of an interest in it just because I
Yeah.
always loved comedy. And there's a lot of, even with acting, there's a lot of comedians that I look up to, you know, who were known for being performers and stuff,
Yeah.
for comedy specifically. But in the case of comedy, it takes it's, I don't know if it's difficult, but you can you can go from being loose and kind of improvisational, and then it's transitioning back to the material. that I think takes a special skill to be able to do, especially when you've written your own material. And I can imagine even with writing your own material, there's a lot of self-consciousness that comes into play where you're like, oh, is
Yeah.
my material actually funny? And it's not until you're in front of that audience that you kind of can really find out for sure. But you can still tweak it, you know.
Yeah. I because because like I know if I sit down and I type it up as a script, so if I type my material out as a script, I'm not gonna learn it as a comedian. So I'd perform that more like I was acting. But what I do is if I've seen something funny in the day, then I've got my notebook in front of me now. So because I'm writing some new stuff, if I've seen something funny in the day, then I'll write down that in my book and put a bullet point with it, and then just some ideas around it. Then when I go on stage, I'll roughly kind of loosely put something together. So I won't learn it; it'd be a rough idea, and then just kind of improvise around it until it gets a bit tighter. And then if the audience say anything, then it goes in. It's very very loose, but still in the bullet points, if you know what I mean. I think because my head just works so much better under that than sitting down with a script. And scripts are amazing things. They've made some of the best art ever. But for me, as a comedian, I think it feels more real if it's going round, if it's just that kind of improvisation and then getting it tied to that way.
There are some comedians who they're very good writers, and that's one of the big things about them. And also kind of they kind of see comedy as like acting and writing
Yeah,
together. So, like for example, George Carlin, I know that he would write out his specials basically like a script and then memorize them.
yeah,
Whereas a lot of other comedians, they will have like you're talking about, they'll have some sort of the ideas, but the way that they word them, they kind of just do it in the moment. They know the punch, they know the setup, and they know the punchline, and that's all they really need. And then they just kind of like feel the audience out, and exactly how they deliver it is just
yeah,
based on that particular audience. And I know that for a lot of comedians, I'm sure this is true for every comedian really. You test out your material maybe with like an open mic audience or something,
yeah,
and you basically it's not a finished product, you know. You're basically, that's how you revise your material, is by performing it for an audience, seeing their reaction, seeing what worked and seeing what didn't work. I know that's what the Marx Brothers did back in the day, even though they weren't, obviously it was a different kind of comedy, but it was still the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, this got a big laugh, this can get a bigger laugh, you know. And I think that's
yeah.
an interesting way to work, an interesting process.
I just love that as a process as well. Like there's nothing I really love doing open mics as well because you can just be loose and there's nothing better than going on stage with just because I write my bullet points down, I always do them on the back of my hand so that I can just look and say right. Because I've got written down at the moment dragon's eggs. I don't know where I'm gonna go with it, but there's another comedian called Adam Morrison, and what we do is once a week is he'll text me 5 words or 5 scenarios, and then I'll try and write some material around it, and I'll text him 5 random ideas, and then just see what grows on that. And I just think that's just the best. There's nothing better in theatre or anything when you've just made something and it's happened with the audience organically on stage, and then that's where you build on that clay, where you've got that little kind of seed and go, right, this could be a sunflower if I just put the time and the effort in and grow it and grow it and grow it.
That's a real creative way to do it. It's almost like you're working backwards. You're like starting with
Yeah,
the punchline. It's like, how do I set up to get to that? And it's a very interesting challenge for a comedian. But I mean, that's the skill, is being able
yeah,
to work in different ways to create your material. And I do understand the idea uh of sort of just being in the moment. Like for what I have done with acting and doing theater, it's usually tighter. You know, you have the script, you do weeks or months of rehearsals, and there's very little change from night to night. But I always I always like a little bit of spontaneity. So
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to have some shows that I've done where they encourage a little bit of ad libbing, and that to me is always a lot of fun. And I always do little things too, like it could be a little gesture or a little bit of comedy business that you make up, but you still kind of go along with the show. But with comedy, it's your material. You're the actor and the writer and the director, basically, and you can kind of do whatever you want. But it also comes with that added effect of being, if you're like a self-conscious person and you have your own insecurities, which I know a lot of comedians have, there's that worry of, oh, these people may not like me. Because with an actor, you can kind of hide behind your character and hide behind the material. And if
Yeah,
people don't
exactly.
like it, you can be like, well, maybe it's not me. But with a comedian, there's a lot more pressure, I feel like.
There is certainly that's the main thing as well, and that's why it's free and open, but it's always good to do those open mic nights and those smaller nights before doing bigger ones, because you learn your craft, and it is a craft.
Yes.
But there's nothing worse than going on stage, and there are times when you'll just get an audience, and they're the wrong audience, they're the wrong crowd, you're not the right comedian to them, and sometimes, like, this is the thing that most younger comedians don't get. Sometimes an audience just won't like you. They just won't take to you. It's just it's the nature of it. But as long as you do your best, so you know what you're doing is on point and on form, then every night you go out, you know you're solid. There's nothing worse than dying on a gig and knowing that it's your fault for not learning the material, or it's your fault for not being switched on. It's like I don't drink before going on, and a lot of comedians will have a few pints and stuff, and then do a set, and it just baffles me of going, how can you do that? Like, because you want your head fresh, you want it to feel like you want the audience to have the best show that they're going to have. I think for me as well with the dyspraxic, because like sometimes my head gets in a muddle, I need it to be that extra bit clear.
Right.
So, oh, pardon me. The tea went down the wrong way. What an English thing to say as well. The tea went down the
For us to
wrong
be the
way.
Dr.
Get it?
Pepper
Yeah.
or the sweet
Oh,
tea. In Texas, it'd be the sweet tea.
sweet tea's amazing.
Oh,
Man, do you know what I've missed? Like, because me and my girlfriend, well, fiance now, we went over to New York last year and we went to Popeye's Chicken, and we don't have that in England, and that was the greatest fried chicken I've ever had in the entirety of my life, and I've been thinking about it for about a year and a half.
Popeyes.
Popeyes,
I
it
I never tried their sandwich. Every time that new sandwich that everyone was raving about, it was always out.
yeah.
So I never was able to
I
try it.
just Oh man, just your the food over there. This is because I'm on a diet at the moment as well, probably. Like, it's just amazing. Like, you've got so much choice and so much, and it's like then you come back to England and go like, like we have the most primitive like kind of McDonald's and takeaways in the
Yeah.
world.
Fish and chips.
It's not right. Oh, fish and chips is just rubbish.
Um,
We kind of try and make it sound good, but it's not the same. I say
yeah.
that as a Brit. Have
I've
you ever had fish and chips before?
no, not really. Not like the traditional English way, however that is. Um,
It's just deep fat fried. That's a
Pretty much
traditional
it.
English way.
Something you get from Long John Silver's, maybe. Um,
Yeah, similar to that.
it's kind of funny you talk about like the choices that we have over here. That's why it was always ridiculous to me when I'd see on the news people getting upset because Popeyes was out of chicken or something like that. And it's like, go somewhere else. There's literally right next door, there's probably a Whataburger or a McDonald's, a Burger King, Taco Bell, everywhere. You can't go down a
Exactly.
street without five, at least five, like fast food restaurants. Like,
Exactly. It's not like, yeah, if that one place is out, I'm sure you'll find something. You might end up with a Subway, which no one wants ever, but
well,
I don't know. that kind of the low grade here. Like Subway are the worst. Like that's where you go if you're really stuck.
I don't mind Subway, but I've definitely tried some better sandwich places. Subway is fine. I'm like, all right, I'll go to Subway because I feel like having a sandwich, and it's the only sandwich place around. But if they have like a Firehouse Subs or something like
Oh,
that, then I'll definitely go to that instead.
oh man, I just like the thing is like I'm writing a lot of stand up at the moment about food, partly because I've been on this diet for 2.5 weeks, and it's just like thinking about America. I've even been watching YouTube videos on comparison meals and thinking, do you know what? When this is all over, I could go to New York, I could do some gigs, and I could just try some of that food, which is insane thinking. Like no one should be thinking like, yeah, do you know what? Let's just gig there so I can get a slightly bigger burger. I've got a
Well,
problem. I need to sort it out.
I'm right there with you though. I have the same thing. It's like anytime if I go to a new place, I'm like, I wonder what kind of local restaurants they have here. Yeah, I want to try some of the
Yeah,
local food. I'm always thinking about if I go on a trip, I'm like excited about what kind of food we're gonna eat, you know?
yeah. Oh man, there's nothing better than that, is there? Finding a new little place
Little mom and
or a
pop place.
decent. Yeah, just man. I think that's been the thing this year is well, last year because because of COVID, not being able to get out and explore and see places, and I really noticed that, like especially because if I was gigging like 3-4 nights a week, it's a very different vibe. Like going from that to nothing, it's just so odd. Sorry, I seem to be coughing quite loudly there.
Oh, it's all right.
Oh,
You got the COVID. No.
I've got the car, man. I'm getting
Everything is
actually.
COVID.
It feels like it. I'm getting the vaccine on Saturday as well,
Oh,
so
nice.
that's quite exciting. The first one, so
Um,
fingers crossed.
I'm hoping that we get it soon. I don't think we're on the priority list right now,
Yeah,
but hopefully we'll be able to get it soon because I would love to be able to actually go out and do some social things, see some friends. You know, it's been some time. I'm so out of
oh,
habit of actually having a conversation with people.
oh yeah. Do you find that weird as well? Like even if you're going on a walk, and even if it's social distance, you'll walk past someone and like saying hello will just be weird.
I
Like
know. Well, it's always weird for that anyway. Like the weirdest thing for me is whenever I'm walking one way and someone is walking the other way and you don't know if you should say hello or just
yeah,
not even recognize them because there's always people who will look at you like weird if you even say hello or even acknowledge them.
yeah.
But then you don't want to seem rude, you want to seem polite. So it's like you're in a dilemma because you don't know these people. You don't but it shouldn't
Oh,
matter, but it does.
it's weird though, isn't it? The hello, like it's judging it on the person. And I'll tell you what I do. I change my hello from who it is. So like if it's an older couple, I'll always be hello. Like I went for a run earlier and I walked past this couple and they must have been in their 60s. And I don't know, I've never said this in my life, but I jogged past them and I just went, good evening. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? You've never said good evening to anyone. And why did you put on a Transylvania voice when you went past them? It was just like, what the blimmin' heck are you doing, boy? So yeah, that's it was
What did
good
they do?
evening.
Did they get their
What?
steak out? Oh god.
And the man just looked and went, evening.
Hello. Hello. And then he turned into a werewolf.
Oh,
Um
that would have been incredible.
Honey, you never believe what happened.
You
Um
never believe what happened. This is why people don't say good evening because of the werewolf killings.
yeah, the dreaded werewolf curse.
Oh man,
Just that one phrase.
oh, like talking about stuff like that. We live near a graveyard, and you can see it from like our kitchen window. And I didn't know this. Someone had painted one of the graves with like luminous paint and put lights around it. And I don't know why, but I got up at like 2 o'clock the other morning to get a glass of water, looked out there, and it was just this angel illuminated with these lights on, and it scared the life out of me. And it's just like, why would you do that? Like, what? What are you doing? But yeah, now I know it's like not real. That's kind of why I went for the run of going. Like, I need to check that that's a thing. It's either that or I've actually lost it.
You need to channel your inner Scooby Doo and check it out.
Oh man, if only they were real. That would be great. How did they make any money?
I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking, like, they just went around solving mysteries. 9 out of 10 times, it was the head of the company anyway. So the person who was going to pay them that they'd put in prison. It's not a very profitable business, is it? The mystery machine.
It's also not very good business practice for the person to hire someone to investigate something that you're responsible for.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense.
And I wonder how much they
Oh,
spend on masks too.
well, you got all that, and imagine the food bill. Imagine their food bill from like just from Shaggy and Scooby as well.
But I think they just
Man,
dine and dash. That's
oh, they
what
must do.
they're just jerks. They did dine and dash.
They definitely did. They would be right that on the tax refunds. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah. So
All that food that's gone. Yeah, sorry, man. I think I've taken us down a different path there.
hey, nothing wrong with that. I'm sure people will find it interesting nevertheless. I think it's interesting what you said earlier about some nights one thing comedians need to realize is that there are just audiences that don't like you, and it makes me think about the fact that even the best comedians have bombed horribly.
Yeah.
Think about all the best comedians, um, which I think is a good segue to my next question, which is how did you first become interested in comedy, and who were some of the comedians that influenced you and made you look at them and think that's what I want to do?
Oh, I could tell you the exact. I was 6 years old, and I was staying at my grandma's house, and we uh, we had a comedian called Des O'Connor, and he used to have a show on a Saturday night where he'd interviewed people. Now, oh, so he was. We were watching the TV together, and there was this comedian called Dominic Holland on there, and he was just telling a few jokes, and I thought this guy's amazing. And I remember just laughing and just getting the excitement of laughter, and then looking at my grandma, thinking, "Wow, I can do that for a living to people." And I met Dominic Holland and told him this recently, like 2 years ago. I go, fun fact for you about Dominic Holland: he's Tom Holland's dad from Spider-Man.
Oh,
So yeah, he started out as a English comedian, Dominic, and it was just that realization of watching that and thinking, do you know what? I can make people laugh, and I can get paid for it. Or this makes perfect sense. And that was the moment I knew. And then, like as you grow up, like comedians that you know, Robin Williams is one that I
oh yeah.
remember just watching his comedy and being
Well, he was a
blown
hero of
away.
mine as an
Like,
actor,
oh man, he's just
comedian.
the
So
guy's brilliant. It was such a sad loss as well. And this is thing, if anyone like loves comedy, it's called Set List. It's on YouTube, and comedians go on with no material. A word comes up, and they have to make a whole set on that. And
yes, I've seen that.
yeah, it's so good. The Robin Williams one is just off the chain.
I have seen that one, but I don't
Of where you
remember
think,
exactly what it was. But I remember, of course, he killed. You know,
yeah,
naturally, his improvisational skills are amazing. Although he did have seem to
that's
have a
it.
little bit of trouble keeping up with those guys on Whose Line Is It Anyway? But he basically he fit in. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, those guys are masters of their craft. I don't even understand how they do what they do. But no, Robin Williams, you're right about how much of a loss it was. And I remember clearly it's almost like a where were you kind of moment. Like whenever he died and I found out that he died, I was like in shock, just because he was such a hero to me. and I was never able to meet him, and that was always a dream of mine, was to meet him one day,
Yeah.
and to hear about that. Of course, that it was suicide too. Of course, at the time we didn't know why. What his reasons were. That it was Lewy body dementia and what was going on with him. But yeah, it was such a big shock, and I was at work at the time. I was working at a fast food restaurant, and
Oh, well.
I just remember reading about it, and I thought it was a hoax. I was just like, "Oh, he didn't die." But then I read that all these people saying "R.I.P. Robin Williams," and I find that it's true. And I remember one of my coworkers was this 18-year-old guy, and he saw how I'd gone like pale and stuff, and he
Yeah.
asked what was going on. I'm like, Robin Williams died, and he's like, who? And I'm just like talking about how much of a hero he was, and he's like, but the guy just didn't understand why I was so shaken up by his death. Because I guess he just didn't. I guess it was before his time, maybe, I don't know. But he
It's
was.
weird, isn't it? The thing is with that of like where people say like, well, you never knew him. It's like, but you did know him because those videos were in your house and part of your childhood, and like all that stuff is part of you growing as a human being. And especially if you're into acting and that is the career path you want to go into, that is something that's kind of molded you along the way, and that's a big part to lose as well when you actually think about it.
Yeah, it's like an end to your innocence in a way. And I've had many moments in my life that felt like an end to my innocence, but it's like little parts of that innocence kind of fades away. And when a hero of yours from your childhood that you've grown up with his movies, you've grown up seeing his comedy and seeing him on talk shows and all sorts of stuff, you feel the loss, especially to know that you'll never see another film with him, you'll never see another stand-up show with him. um yeah, you'll never get to meet him, and just the fact that he's gone. And it's like that's it. And it's really tragic. And it's the same with, I don't know if there's really been anybody whose death has impacted me in that way, at least not somebody like a famous figure.
Yeah.
And it
I
just
don't think there has been anyone else for
um
me. Like Stan Lee was quite a big one for me, I think actually,
yeah.
but that wasn't sudden as such, and like, but that was one that made me think, oh, that's someone I'm not going to meet. And I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? The idea of not being able to meet someone just to say thank you
Yeah.
is a weird thing, because it would have been nice to actually about like thank you for providing me with years of comics, which makes you the person that you are. Like, and my next show, my next Edinburgh show, the next hour of stand up. I'm trying to think of what would be the best way of wording it. So my next special is going to be called The Adder. So and that comes from being a kid and wanting to be a superhero. It's the whole premise around that, and it's just weird to think that the person who kind of inspired that isn't around to just say thank you, and you feel like you know them even though you don't, because you don't, and he's dead.
Right. Are there any particular people? I'm sure there are, but who are some people who are alive today that maybe you haven't met, but maybe you would like to meet and just be able to thank them for how much they've influenced you?
There's Oh, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think of over here. The thing is, it's weird now because every now and then you meet someone like who you used to watch on TV,
I don't.
Russell Howard. Oh, do you not?
No, unfortunately, but
It, nah, it's surreal after a while. There's an English comedian over here called Russell Howard. Do you know of his work at all?
Russell Howard. Forgive me. I don't. There's a lot of there's a lot of
Yeah, no, no.
English
But this is
comedians. I
what
don't.
this is all about. It all.
I know
Yeah,
more
so he,
American comedians than.
yeah, which makes sense because you would know about what American comedians. Uh, Russell Howard's one that I just look at, and like when I remember my first gig when I was 25, I'd just seen Russell Howard live. Now he sells out stadiums and arenas over here, but we saw a preview show in Brighton in a venue with like 100 seats, and he was just so good. And I remember thinking, right, I've got to start doing comedy now. This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I'm going to do it now. I'm not going to do any other crap jobs. I'm going to do it. So I booked myself 5 minutes in a comedy club in a place called Bognor Regis near Brighton. And I just remember like going on and just getting the first bit of laughter and thinking, boom, this is what I want to do forever. And then it going really well until about 4 minutes in, the laughter stopped and I dried up and I forgot all the material and actually could hear my footsteps walking off thinking, oh, that was pretty awful, that dying on my ass thing. But the initial kind of laughter and warmth, let's just stick with that. And that was the moment I was like, do you know what? I really want to do this, but I need to work out a way of getting good so that I never make that happen again. And there is nothing worse. I presume it's the same with you. Have you ever dried up on lines at all, or?
There was only one time that I can remember. Um, I'm drying up right now. No.
Is it that?
There's only one time I remember where for a split second I forgot my line, but it was one of those moments because when you're on stage, time does seem to slow down. That's why whenever
Yeah,
you watch yourself perform, like if you see a video of yourself performing, you're like, why am I talking so fast?
exactly.
That's how I am because I don't realize how fast. So I know that 1 second that I remember where I forgot my line, it must have no one would have noticed it but me. Like it felt
Yeah.
like maybe a minute had gone by, but I know that it must have been like a second. Um, but usually I'm pretty good about honing the material, and I do
Yeah.
remember one time somebody threw something at me during a show where I had
Oh,
to ad
blimey.
lib, and I was not literally threw it, but like they kind of threw like a lot, like they made up they ad libbed a little bit during a scene, and I wasn't expecting it, so I kind of had to awkwardly ad lib, but I never really froze up. I've seen it happen, which
Yeah.
is terrifying, and you get like secondhand embarrassment from those people. But I feel like I would freeze up all the time if I did comedy because the thing about acting is that you're usually in a scene with other people, so you can rely on other people or you know
Yeah.
move on to the next line or something. But if you freeze up by yourself on stage, then it's got to be terrifying.
Do you know what? Like, because I did performing arts for at college, and the thing that I prefer on comedy, which is different, like, because it's just me, it's not that feeling of letting people down on stage if I get something wrong, and that's just a really different perspective as well. Like, because a few times, like, I've been on stage, I've said a wrong line and then it's not someone else, and I've been like, ugh. But that might be a case of not being a very supportive cast. But another thing with that course, one year our final assessment was a play called Good Woman of Szechuan. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have not.
So it's basically it's a play about a woman who's a tobacco seller in Szechuan, and like she gets everyone comes to stay with her and takes her money, and it's just a really like one of those long-winded plays, like the gods are involved and everything like that.
Right.
And my mate Andy went on stage and we had this scene together, and I had this suspicion that he had not learned any of his lines, and I was right. And I went on, and I was like, "Good morning, Wong. How are you today?" And he looked at me and went, "I'm not too bad," which wasn't the line at all. So we had to improvise for about 10 minutes, and it was painful. Like he just didn't learn the script, and this was like a final assessment. And I just remember getting to the end of it, of like literally like trying to pull him to one side off the stage, go like, "You didn't learn any of the lines." He went, "Yeah, but a script's just a guide." And it's like, no, it's a guideline that you need to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it was just terrible. He just not learn anything on a
I've had
final assessment.
I can tell many stories about instances where other people forgot lines and or other I remember one time there was a show where somebody went to the bathroom and they were in the bathroom on the toilet right at their cue. And I wasn't on stage, luckily. I was backstage, but people were just like, "Where's, where whatever his name is." And I was just like, "Oh my God, he's taking a crap right now." And you're just like, what do you do? What do you do in that situation?
Oh man,
I don't.
it's moments like that where you just look and think, "This is genius." The best thing I've ever seen, because I did a version of "We Will Rock You," where I played Britney Spears, and this was about 10 years ago. And one of the other actors, who wasn't even in the scene, and this was a sound engineer's fault, like halfway through, just heard, "Ah, that's better," and a toilet train flush. He'd left his microphone on. He'd gone through he got to use the toilet, flushed it halfway through this big scene of how everyone's going to get together and take music back. It was just amazing. Didn't even mute it though. Didn't even hear that and think, "Do you know what? There's a toilet flushing. Maybe I should mute this right now." Bless. You've got to laugh.
Yeah, that's all you
It,
can do because I mean it's not your fault if something technical happens. I remember one time I went to see a friend of mine in a show and they were doing James and the Giant Peach. And you know how in James and the Giant Peach, it's like the peach falls from the sky and lands on top of the Empire State Building.
yeah.
And in the scene, um, they had the peach on a string and they were basically gonna like they were basically dropping it over the Empire State. They were gonna have it in front of the Empire State Building, but it was gonna look to the audience like it was on top of it. But whenever
Yeah.
I went to see it, the string broke, so the peach just came tumbling down, just straight to the New York City streets. And then they just immediately like closed the curtain and then opened the curtain again, and it was back on the Empire State Building. But I was just like, all those bugs are dead. James is dead. Millions of people on the streets. Cars are crushed.
The Rhino one. That was
Yeah,
a very different view of that piece.
yeah,
It's what Raoul Down would have wanted, really. It's moments like that I look, and that's the things like of, because I always remember going, "These are the best moments on stage. These ridiculous moments." I did Jack and the Beanstalk once, and the head fell off the giant halfway through and rolled into the audience, and that was one of the greatest moments I think I've ever seen on a stage ever. And they're just watching like a sound engineer go around and try and get the head off the kids.
it's so
Madness.
funny. Those are the anecdotal moments of performing, and that's one of the things I love about live theater. Um, is just things do sometimes go wrong, and it's terrifying when it does. But then afterwards, you can tell these stories. Like I punched a guy on stage once. It was supposed to be a fake punch, and he ruined it. And it was supposed to be a real intense moment. And we had set up this whole fake punch, and he just did it wrong. And I didn't have
Yeah.
a time to kind of fix it. So it just looked so phony, and the audience burst out laughing, and I was mortified, and I was so angry at the guy that I told myself that if he gets it wrong the next night, I'm just gonna actually hit him. So the next night came, and he was about to do the thing wrong, uh, as we had practiced it a certain way, and he was doing it wrong. So I just socked him in the right jaw, and I'll never forget the look on his face that like if you could see it in slow motion, it'd be like, "Ugh," like
Just move out of the way.
"What?" Like just that shock, and everybody. The thing was, everybody hated the guy because it was in school. It was in high school, and he was. They needed like an attractive guy to play that part, but
Yeah.
none of the people that wanted to do theater, like were attractive enough. I guess. Um, so they. I mean, I could have played the part. No, not really, but they ended the director ended up getting someone on the tennis team, I think, and he was kind of a jerk. He was always pulling pranks on people. I didn't mind him too much, but everybody hated him. So whenever people found out that I actually punched him, I was like a hero. Everyone was just like, literally, people were thanking me for hitting him. And then the next day, our last performance, he was like, "Please don't hit me again." And I'm just like, "Well, you do the fake punch right, then I won't have to." And so we
That's it.
did.
It's there for a reason.
Don't give me a reason to hit you.
Oh, but it's weird when you look back. I remember once we did this big show, and it was like a variety show, so there's loads of music and it finished like with this big pyrotechnic thing, but like the technician had moved the pyrotechnics and not told me, and halfway through the song, what was it? It was what did we finish with? That's how bad my brain's getting. It was like it was a Michael Jackson song. It was a really tender moment. There was a big note. Everyone's going up. This pyrotechnic goes off, and I see one and don't see the other pyrotechnic, and I'm thinking that's weird. I can usually see both, and I look round to find my trousers on fire, where it's gone up and set fire to like my left leg, and it was just that moment of going, "Someone put me out! Someone put me out!" It took like 30 seconds for anyone to realise and come on like and put it out, but literally had to kind of like roll round on the floor. So
Oh,
there's this poor guy singing this number, and I'm just rolling around in the back at that moment of going, please, please, just I don't want to go on fire. But I literally looked round and was like, I'm on fire. It was weird. It was like I didn't feel it until I saw it.
it wasn't a live version of the Pepsi commercial, was it?
It wasn't far off. Trying to think what the
At
song
least it
was. It
was
was like,
someone else on fire.
yeah, exactly. I was going to say they were trying to it was someone from Coca-Cola out for
Yeah.
revenge, I think, just trying to sort it out. But man, like, which is good because like my my first show, my first special was called Entertainer, and it was all those stories about working in holiday parks. Because I don't know if you have the same kind of culture over there that we do here. We have holiday parks, so they're kind of like Disneyland,
Oh,
Universal Studios, but without the attractions or the budget. So just the hotels and like a kind of a function room, and every now and then a merry-go-round.
so it's kind of like a resort or maybe like a
Yeah, it is
fair or something.
just a kind of a much lower version. But I did that for like years of my life of being an entertainer on them, of just being in massive mascot costumes, walking around, smiling at people. At one point, they tried to teach me how to juggle, and then realised quite quickly that was never going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like I'm dyspraxic. It's all right. You'll pick it up. It's like you do not understand. This is not the thing that you need to teach
That's like
me.
whenever I had to
It's
dance
like,
in
nah, we'll
shows.
make you. Oh, mate. I I can't dance at all, and like I've come to terms with it. I've accepted it now at my old age. But I was always that guy of, you're right, Adam. Yeah, your voice sounds really good, but can you just stand at the side and then just walk to the walk to the front for your solo? It's just like it's weird, isn't it? Because like your head's like telling you you can dance, and like in your mind you're getting the piece, but it's not. It's almost like you've got someone else's legs sewed to you.
Yeah, I I had to do. I've had to dance in a few shows. I can do all right if it's just solo. It's gonna look
Yeah,
awkward, but it's whenever I have to do a dance with someone else. So like if I have to waltz or
yeah,
there was one show I did where I had to tango, and it was it was a musical, and it was during a musical number, and it was a comedy. It was actually the same one I mentioned in the introduction where I played a bingo caller, and someone singing about like they're in love with me and stuff. And then I rip off my shirt, and I'm wearing this undershirt that has like Superman on it, and I run up to her, and we just start tangoing, and it was really awkward, and it was really hard for people to like teach me how to do the tango because because I'm dyspraxic, and it
Yeah,
was just really difficult to learn all the steps. And I ended up doing it fine. It was still looked weird, but I was able to make at least do it.
yeah.
um, but I remember at that particular theater, which is the theater where I live now, but there's not open right now. But they mic all the actors because it's kind of a big theater, so you can't rely on projection. So, everybody was mic'd. And so I had like, and the mic was like, they had like a little earpiece, and it like runs down like your shirt, and then you basically have like the battery pack like in the back in your back pocket or something. And I remember doing the tango during one rehearsal, and the battery pack came out of my pocket and just was like sliding on the floor. And the guy in the booth was just stopped the music, was like, "Hold it," and basically yelled at me. It's like, I can't help it. I'm jumping around. I'm moving. Like, cut me some slack.
the,
That was a
the
difficult
most.
show because I actually had to call bingo numbers, and I had to work the machine, and that
Oh
took
man.
and I had to ad lib too because we were doing actual bingo games during that. So for a dyspraxic, you find methods that work. I actually had like all sorts of stuff like on note cards, and no one could see like the top of the machine. So I just had all these note cards everywhere, so that had like lines on it, add things I had written to like ad lib and say, and like I couldn't remember all the numbers because in the script it listed like B4, all sorts of things during specific moments. So I had those written down because I couldn't memorize the order of the numbers. And so you find ways as dyspraxics, these methods that work.
Oh,
As,
definitely.
as a comedian, do you find certain things as like difficult as a dyspraxic that you kind of have to find your own method of working out?
My main thing as well, and I've become a lot better of it, better with it, is learning an entire set and getting it down and solid, which is why I always have the bullet points on the back of my hand. So what I'll do is, if I'm looking at the notes now for entertainer, so it will be the first bit is my first audition. So I'll write audition, and that'll be the first 10 minutes. Second bits is moving in with my roommate, so moving in, and that'll be the next bit. So I just write the bullet points on because I just think that's it. It's almost like a little prompt
Yes.
as well. And if you tighten something up enough in like your head and you just do it and you do it, at least you vaguely know it and you can grab it. I've never been one of those comedians who can just have hours of material learned. I mean, I've got like stuff like that I know off by heart, but there's a comedian called Mick Miller. He's amazing. I think he's in his 70s now, but he knows everything inside out and is still performing. And I just think to myself, I want to be as good as him technically, but I know because I am dyspraxic, I'm going to have to do it differently. And that's the other thing as well. Like I've been thinking about this recently. It's like if you want to do something, it's like as you were saying with your dancing, most people with dyspraxia would just go, "No, I'm dyspraxic. I can't do it." But if you want to do something in life, you've kind of got to find a way and push, or you never achieve what you want to do. And that's always been a thing as well of having those little tips because it's worth doing. It's like I want to do. I've always wanted to do stand-up comedy more than anything in my life. So by doing that, I'm going to have to learn some shortcuts, and I'm going to have to learn a way of doing it that my mind works. So another way of doing it is the mind palace. Do you know about mind palaces or?
I haven't heard about it.
So what you do is, if you're learning a show in stand-up, you think of your childhood home. So your living room's your first bit. So my living room would be, I've got a bit of material about bingo, funny enough. So in the living room is the bingo material. So you store all that bit in your head. In the bathroom, I do a song at the end of my set where I get words from the audience and I just turn that into a song. So that's where my song is. So you place all these different bits in the house. So when you're on stage, you can go, right, oh, bathroom, what's that? This bit. It just kind of lets you access the data a bit more quickly as opposed to just learning it. And like that's another thing with acting. It's like at least at least with stand up I'm writing it and it's my material. So I can play with it. I can change bits around quite a bit. If I was doing the works of Shakespeare on stage, I don't think they'd be as lenient for for actually learning it and getting it down. So that's one tip of just the bullet points. I think is the best way to do it.
That's a very
And
interesting method. I've never really heard about people doing that, picturing different bits in different rooms.
yeah,
Never thought to try that. I don't know if it would work the same with acting, of course.
yeah,
But with the dyspraxic, I think one of the things about doing like live theater is you often rehearse it over and over again, and you kind of need that. You get into a routine, and I think that doing things as a dyspraxic is kind of all about rhythm. It's like
exactly.
you get into the cadency of doing certain things over and over again. And it's the same thing with like starting a job. If you just do like any kind of job as a dyspraxic starting out, you're going to have trouble. Just like when you're doing a show and you're learning the blocking,
Yeah.
you may have trouble. But then once you get used to it and you do it several times, then it just becomes like second nature. That's one of the things I love about doing theater is that I go here, and these are my lines, and I'm repeating the lines over and over again, so that when it comes to actually performing it, it's almost like it's just instinctual. And I may have memorized these lines, but they feel natural
Yeah.
because I have them so ingrained in my head. Um, but even still, everything is sort of mechanical because they have to be. But you can kind of go with the flow and kind of let it feel loose, even if it is, all about, even if it is rigid.
I I think that's it. I think one of the greatest problems we have over this side of the pond with dyspraxia is people seem to blame it for everything, and I don't ever feel that you get anything out of life if you're just constantly blaming it all on, oh, this is why. Because if you want to do something, then there's always a way. You've just got to find that way.
Yeah, I mean, you can't use it as a crutch. And I mean, even
Exactly.
I've
That's
been
what I
guilty
was
of
looking
that
for.
sometimes. I mean, I try not to be, um, but I know that there are certain things that I just struggle with
Yeah.
dyspraxia that it does prevent me from a lot. Um, but you can't just like if you can't give up on the things that you want to do just because you have dyspraxia. Like for instance, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist. That was my big dream, but I couldn't draw
Yeah.
with the dam. And but now I will actually draw things almost purposely skewed.
Yeah.
And like I'll do portraits of people, and I call them bad portraits, and I'll draw all these portraits of people. I'll just draw them, and they'll always look funny. So it's
Yeah.
just something that works. It's like sometimes you could turn something that you're bad at and turn it into something entertaining. People still find it funny, and they're like, huh, that funny looking, drawing that you did.
And in some ways, that's given someone more enjoyment and a bit more than someone who's drawn something perfectly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I prefer that in life of going, I like those moments. I like imperfect. I like imperfection. Like the irony of not even being able to pronounce that line properly of imperfection. Uh, but it is that thing of like, those are the things I like, of like when you watch something and something goes wrong or something like that. And it's that same thing. If you're giving someone joy from one of your drawings, that's you being a cartoonist. You've
Yeah,
done it.
I probably
That's the
wouldn't
thing.
be a successful animator, but to
Yeah,
draw things and just, yeah, if it's just to make people laugh, I mean, that's one of the greatest joys, is to make people laugh. And I wonder if it's being a dyspraxic thing, if that's just part of a lot of us, is we're kind of drawn to imperfection. Like
yeah,
we tend to like people that have certain flaws. Because when we find somebody that just seems, you ever meet those people? They just seem a bit too perfect, and
yeah,
it's just like it's almost like it's a bad thing to be perfect. It's like these people have perfect proportions. They are skilled and talented at everything that they do, and it could just be bitterness and envy. But at any rate, it's like I'd rather kind of hang out with the misfits and the people that make more mistakes. They feel
yeah.
more human.
Do you know what? Now you said that, I've just like kind of analysed like my life. I'm going, yeah, that's why I listen to goth and emo music, is that's why that happened.
Yeah.
Uh, it is the way to look at it as well. It's like the thing I find looking back at like when I was younger with it, it's like our school system over here like was not was very primitive when it came to dyspraxia. So there was that kind of sense of going, oh, he hasn't got a problem, he's just a bit thick. So I got to the point of finishing my school life of going like, and the teaching, there were some great teachers and brilliant people, but the overall feeling of going, well, they don't think I'm good at anything. I'm going to do what I wanted to do. So it's kind of made me think, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be doing what I wanted to do. I'd be on my way to another career, which I wouldn't have wanted to go to. So it's kind of that thing that's made me stand out, has kind of pushed me in the right direction that I wanted to go when I was 6 years old.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that people have, like neurotypical people who they they aren't necessarily interested in certain things, but they're all right at it to a point where it's like they don't know what else they want to do, so they
Yeah,
just kind of do that. But for dyspraxics, there's so many things that we're just not good at, that if we're not interested in it and we're not good at it, then it's really hard for us to see ourselves pursuing that.
too right.
But if it's something, even if we're not good at something, but it is something that we're interested in, like for me, starting out, I wasn't good at acting. I don't think I was at all. But the more you do it, the better you get, and practice makes perfect, and all that kind of that old chestnut. But
Yeah,
if it's
it's like
something
a
that
muscle.
your heart is in it, then I think you can become good at it.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's. I heard someone describe like performance as a muscle. Like the more you do it, the stronger it gets,
Exactly.
and like the more you work out. And I think that's the best way of looking at it. It's the same with anything. Like there's always a way around doing stuff. Always a way. And if you want to do something enough, you will find a way around it. If you don't want to do it, you'll find a way. That is what I've noticed in my life, where I've gone, now's the time to pull the dyspraxia card. And I've been guilty of that a few times. I go, oh, I can't do that. I'm dyspraxic. Uh,
Sometimes it's appropriate.
mainly,
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's got to have some like good points on it as well, isn't it? Come on, like pull it out every now
Sometimes
and
you're
then.
right. Sometimes you do
Yeah,
think I can't do that because I'm dyspraxic, and it's just, yeah, you kind of know what your abilities are. You kind of know where your struggles are. There's certain things that I probably can't drive,
yeah,
um, and I'm pretty confident in that. I mean, I would still try it if it was safe, but there's just those things where it's appropriate, but you don't want to use it as a crutch to not even try something, and to
yeah.
just, you have to step out of your comfort zone sometimes. That's like what I say to people with, well, I don't say it to them, but what I think about people with like social anxiety, and I've struggled with social anxiety, but there's those people who have social anxiety who feel like they're safer in these kind of isolating themselves, and they just try to build a world where they don't have to interact with people. And it becomes such a problem for them just to make any basic human interaction. And I understand how hard that is, but sometimes it's better to just force yourself into that situation. And yes, it's going to be hard. You're going to be anxious, and you're going to feel self-conscious. But once you step out of that, then it does get easier. That's why it's easier for me to talk to people than it used to be, because I might still have a bit of social anxiety, but I've been able to manage it and overcome a lot because I've put myself in that position.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And the other thing, people seem to forget in general is like people are nice most of the time. It's like the world is generally a good place, and that kind of gets like lost, I think, where people seem to think everyone's out to get. No, everyone's out to do the best they can in life. There are some
Yeah,
people who are absolute arses out there, but
yeah.
if you put yourself out there, you're gonna you meet more people and you build and grow as a
We
human. That's one of the gifts we have. Well, not now.
exactly.
It's COVID time. You can't see
Yeah.
anyone.
It's a little bit different now, but once it's all over. But
Yeah,
there are people, even a lot of the people that are like rude, they're not usually rude because they don't like you or because like they're usually just concerned with their own, stuff.
yeah,
Whatever's going on in their life, they might be dealing with something. I've been rude to people. I've had people think that I was a total asshole. Um, and it wasn't like I was trying to be, or it was nothing against that person. It was just they caught me in a bad mood, you know,
yeah.
and I feel bad about it later, and those people might feel bad about it. So it's just, I think you got to give people the benefit of the doubt largely, and just, you know, you can, if somebody's rude, then it's not the end of the world. Like you can just
Yeah,
move on and find someone better.
exactly. I mean, like at the end of the day, you got one life. You want to do the things that you love and enjoy, and just enjoy. This is it. Like you get one go at this. Do the thing that you love doing, and do it to the best of your abilities. That that's that needs to be for me something that I write down because that's generally what I feel. It's like I remember like with Dyspraxic, it was like when I've used it as a crutch, I've always felt bad. But when I've persevered with something, I've felt 100 times better.
Yeah, you don't want to use your dyspraxia to prevent you from doing something. If you want to do it, even if you seem designed to fail, just do it anyway because you'll feel proud of yourself for being able to do something. I mean, nobody expected me to pursue acting or to do anything that I do. I mean, even this podcast, like I don't think it's something that people would generally think of me doing, and I certainly struggle sometimes with it. But I do it because I want to do it, and I may
Yeah,
not be
and
the
you do a
best.
great job.
Yeah, and it's like despite everything, you can still overcome, and you can still do the things that you want to do, even if it's not perfect. Nobody, you're human, and you're allowed to be imperfect, and sometimes it leads to creative things. I'm sure there are ways in which dyspraxia can affect positively affect somebody's comedy. You know.
Well, it definitely. The thing with me is because my mind's slightly disjointed, I go to slightly different places at different that other comedians wouldn't. Which is it's almost like a little superpower sometimes to have of being able to pull something out from a different place and get it. So there is that, which I do see as a gift as well of going, do you know what, that's quite a thing. And like finishing a show with a song as well. Like of just getting a word from the audience. So what I do is I go around and say, give me a word until I've got like 10 words. And then the music will play. And then I will just put a song together. But I know partly the only reason that that works is from a bit of practice and that it's pulled from another part in my brain.
Right.
Uh, so that's kind of because it's so disjointed as well. It works, and it wouldn't work if it was together, which is weird when you look at something. It's like the imperfections make the perfections when it comes to that piece.
Exactly. All right, so we're reaching towards the end of this edition. I feel like we could go on for a lot longer. I would love to have you back. I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about.
It's
But
been a pleasure, Ab.
before we go, I want to ask first of all what what you might have coming up as far as your future gigs and future projects, perhaps, and what maybe your goals are for the near future as far as your comedy career.
So things I've got going happening at the moment. I've got a podcast called Free Man and Little Virus. Me and two other comedians talk about the week stories and yeah, just put out a podcast once a week, and that is available from all podcast platforms. I'm doing a show called Entertainer, which will be touring. We don't know what's happening with that at the moment, just because of the COVID times, and I'm doing quite a lot of little sketches at the moment as well. So we're filming a few of them, and we're doing a little sitcom idea as well. So we're just getting things together. So
Wow,
there's a lot going on at the moment.
a lot of
It's
irons in the
slowly
fire.
getting there. It's a lot of hard work. Yeah, it's the joy of COVID. It keeps you busy. It's where the energy from the stage goes into I'm going to do this instead.
So your
But yeah,
podcast, do you ever have guests on there? Do you have people you like to invite on there, or put me on there maybe? No. um,
yeah, no, pop over, man. It'd be good to have you. Like, weirdly, Paul, the other comedian, Dyspraxic as well. So,
ah,
and we've known each other for about 7 years, but only found that out about 2 years ago. That oh wow, what it never come up until recently. Uh, but it's just one of those things where it's just three people chatting about bits, and yeah, there's a elephant in it called Dave as well that pops up every now and then, which makes more sense when you listen to it than when I explain it. Just the talking elephant pops up. But yeah, that's Free Men and a Little Virus, which is available on all good platforms and some rubbish platforms too.
yeah. If you, I'll definitely. If you ever want to have me on, I'll be happy to have you on, and I'll put a link to that as well in just in the description if you'll provide that for me. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and as far as the other projects, I mean, that sounds really, really awesome. I mean, I've obviously done some writing myself, so
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear about those types of projects. Um, and I guess lastly, if you would like, uh,
Yeah.
would you like to perform a couple minutes of maybe some of your
Yeah.
material in your most recent show?
Why not? Here's some new stuff that I've worked on recently as well because
You you are a little quiet right now.
how about now?
Yeah, that works. I just want to make sure everybody can hear you and your brilliant delivery.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm taking that as a review. Uh, so a few things I've been thinking about recently as well. Like, I don't know, have you had homeschooling over there? Has that been a thing like in America where people are being homeschooled
Like during the pandemic.
during the pandemic? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I know that people kind of had to be homeschooled for a little while, and a lot of people are homeschooling their kids because of the pandemic. Obviously, I'm not a parent, nor am I a child, so I'm not really mixed up too much in that, but I do know that that is sort of what people are doing.
Cool. So these bits will work a bit. Right. Cool. So the thing that's been worrying me recently is obviously like the homeschooling. But the one thing that thought I'm not worried about just anyone. I'm worried about George Lucas's kids. You got to think if he's teaching them how to count, how's that going? 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Those kids have no hope whatsoever. And the other thing as well is I've had to get back to work. I've had to do other jobs. I went to work for McDonald's, which was a great place to work. And one of the things I noticed as well is there was a girl on the same training course. and she had a bit of makeup on. And the manager said, you can't wear any makeup when you're in McDonald's working. And I pointed to Ronald McDonald and said, hold on a minute. How come you can't wear any makeup, yet you have a clown as your mascot? How does that work? So yeah, and they weren't happy with that, so I didn't get the job there. The other thing that's been winding me up as well recently is, do you get those things on TV where they're saying just give $5 a month, just give $5 a month to save this panda, he's endangered. Just give $10 a month. So I did it recently. I gave $10 a month, and it was to save this panda called Chi Chi. And every now and then I get a little letter from Chi Chi, and I get a picture of him in the wild. Recently, he's been in a zoo, but I'm worried during the pandemic of what happens when the zoo closes down. Is Chi Chi my legal responsibility when the zoo closes? I mean, I don't want to knock on the door and Chi Chi's there. Hello, where's my bamboo sideboard gone? Chi Chi's eating it. And what's Chi Chi going to do for a living? I can't afford to keep a panda. They're expensive. The pandas have to get a job, don't they? And the only job a panda's going to be able to do is working at the local golf club in the ticket room. Could you imagine it now? Chi Chi's just stood there, handing out the tickets. It's not going to work. That's why you should not donate any money to anything. No, you should donate. I'm only joking. But yeah, that's just a little bit of stuff over there. It's a bit raw.
That sounds good to me, definitely.
Yeah, it's just odd not being able to like perform with an audience. It just feels good. But yeah, those are just little snippets. I hope you enjoyed them.
I did, absolutely. Yeah, I found it very funny, especially the George Lucas joke.
Yeah. I thought of
um,
that the other day of going like those kids must, and I just find George Lucas amazing as he said like, oh, I'd release them the different way around. It's like, no, you didn't, George. You realised you wanted more money, and then all of a sudden your script's turned up.
yeah, exactly. You can tell by the first Star Wars that it was the original, and I don't even think they're intended to be sequels. I remember my uncle, who sadly passed away, but when I was about 13, told me that he had planned all the movies, like he had planned the Phantom Menace and he wrote them all, and then decided to start with the uh, was it the fourth one?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't buy that.
Who starts with the fourth in a film, and who writes 9 scripts?
I know
Not
he didn't
even
even write
6.
all of them.
No, he definitely didn't. If you're
But
listening, George, pull your out.
yeah.
Yeah, if he just sat there going, "Oh, that'll make me."
He also planned from the
Probably
very beginning to sell the whole franchise to Disney.
exactly. So it had the perfect ending when it was written by someone else.
My plan is to start with the fourth one, then do two more, and then go back, and then I'm going to just hand it off to someone else.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? As well, like I was thinking about this the other day of going like, "There's two." Have you seen like the release roster of how many Star Wars series they're releasing?
They're coming out with a lot of them. I've heard. I haven't seen
It's
all the new
heavy.
ones, but I've seen some of them.
It's just like it was exciting when there was just 3. I remember one of the most disappointing points of my childhood was the Phantom Menace, and I was so excited, and then Jar Jar Binks ruined my childhood. I
What was
remember
he
thinking
thinking?
then it was yeah, but when you were a kid thinking this is crap, you know the film's not good.
Well, when you're not even like
Like, 'cause it,
when you're not even like one of the hardcore Star Wars fans, like the first Star Wars I ever saw was Phantom Menace when in theaters. I was like
yeah,
5, and it was my first exposure to Star Wars. And even then, I was just like, this isn't very good.
but nothing happens in like Phantom Menace. All they do is talk about like political stuff, and no one wants that. Shoot something.
I remember being
The pod
scared at
race.
the end of that one when it showed Liam Neeson being burned, like his body being burned. I remember being like, "Oh, he's on burning, he's on fire."
That's the problem with them as well. They never get the tone right on a Star Wars film, does it? It goes from being a kids' film to something very dark so quickly,
Well, that's like Harry
and it's
Potter.
so exactly like Harry Potter. A- And I only watched them recently. I watched them last year. Me and my fiance watched them all together. The first three are terrible. Like they are so annoyingly British. Like you know when you see like I don't know like does my night where it's something like that looks like it's a tea time drama that should have been on TV, and then it just turns in like from four onwards they're pretty damn good, but those first three utter rubbish. Just
Perhaps it might be because they were written by an American, and maybe they the they was so overly British because it was how an American pictures British people to be and talk and
I, but there's a certain thing on like when certain things are made over here because we use like slightly different cameras and that, and like you guys have always been superior when it's come to like editing the way things look and bits like that. And ours always kind of look like our sitcoms always look like they've been done in someone's back room. So, and I'm aware of this as someone who is British, but no one will be honest about it here. They'll just be like, "Yeah, it's fine, it's going." No, this is why we're all watching American TV because they kind of know what they're doing a bit more than we. Like, let's be honest.
we have bigger
And
budgets though.
oh, definitely. And like your series and your seasons is like 24 episodes on like a sitcom. Ours are about six, which always makes me laugh. Of like,
Yeah. And y'all call them series instead of seasons. That's I always found that
yeah,
interesting. But nowadays they're not doing that anymore. It seems to the like shows used to have like 20 something episodes a season. Now they're like 10, and it's like,
yeah.
well, okay, so we get to have them for like a month, like, a couple of months, and then most of the year, like we have to wait for the next season. It's like, all
And
right,
the thing I loved is when you guys remade The Office, and I think did it better. But then again, there's only 12 episodes and a Christmas special of The Office. So when people talk about it, it's like that's less than half a season, like for some and you know when you're just thinking
yeah,
going, of course
that's barely enough
yeah,
time
that's
to
fine.
introduce the characters. Well, it's like,
Yeah,
and I'm a huge Ricky Gervais fan. He's one of the few like British comedians that I really like enjoy.
yeah,
Especially, I love his podcasts with Carl Pilkington and Stephen Merchant. They're hilarious.
oh yeah,
I was never the biggest fan of The Office. I do appreciate it for being the original and introducing everything. And I have my problems with the American version as well, especially towards the end. You know, everybody kind of agrees that towards like the last few seasons of The Office, especially when Steve Carell left, they really kind of went a bit off the rails. But yeah, sometimes they do it right though to
yeah.
keep it at just a little bit and not let it go on too long. I mean, nobody wants a series to turn into The Simpsons.
Oh no, yeah, I love The Simpsons, but Series 9 I think's the quality is,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the
it's a show
writing.
that's like that takes a 360 in quality pretty much. Um,
Oh mate, I watched one the other day and was like, I love the like Series 5 is one of the best written comedies ever. Like you've got the casino episode, you've got monorail, you've got like everything going on, and they're just great episodes. And to go from that quality where it's just gag, 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 laugh, and like memorable lines you're still quoting now, to whatever the hell I watched the other day of going,
Yeah, I mean,
it was
gosh, even I
like,
mean, the voices have all changed now because they replaced all the voice act. You know, they replaced like half the voice actors. They got rid of characters because they were offensive. You know, um, and now
yeah,
it's just not even what 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 made the show so great is just not. Although I would say that there is no series, in my opinion, that has ruined itself more than this cartoon I used to watch called Fairly Odd Parents. I don't know if you ever heard of that show.
Yeah, I know Fairly Odd Parents.
That show completely destroyed itself towards the end. It became so awful. Like it makes this like modern Simpsons look like, you know, Rick and Morty, you know.
It's weird, isn't it? It's like Nickelodeon as well are the worst for that. That film. Have you ever seen the Fairly Odd Parents movie? The one with the guy from I think it's Drake and Josh.
Oh God. Yes, I have. I remember my brother and I watched it just to see how far we could get. We were just like, this is just
Who gave that the green light?
they had a budget for that,
Oh,
you know? It's terrible. Nickelodeon, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about Nickelodeon because what if they hire me in the future? No, I'm kidding. Um, but Cartoon Network was always my jam. More.
yeah, Cartoon Network. Like I used to love Dexter's Laboratory and stuff like that as well. Rocco's Modern Life was one from Nickelodeon for me, and Rugrats as well. The first
Rugrats
two
is
of them.
pretty good. Yeah, I still think that Rugrats is great, even if it is for young children. I think it's still entertaining. And Hey Arnold too. Hey Arnold was
Hey
always
Arnold.
good from beginning to end.
I just the writing in some of those cartoons where they went for it. I tell you what, I've been watching recently the original animated series of Batman. Have you ever
Uh,
seen that?
I haven't. No. I,
They're so well drawn, and just the stories and all of it is so well put together. It's like watching art.
wow. I'm sure we could talk about this forever.
Exactly.
It's
I need
been a
to get
very
some.
great conversation. I'm really happy to have had you on, and I'll definitely be happy to have you on in the future. And if you obviously if you wanted to invite me onto your podcast, I'd be happy to join you.
Yeah, definitely, man.
And
Yeah, we'll get you on.
all right, well that was Adam Morrison Jones. So thank you everybody who wanted to listen to that, and I will include links to Adam's social media, his YouTube channel, and his podcast in the description. And again, anybody that wants to come on to discuss anything dyspraxia related or otherwise, I will be happy to have you on. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Adam, for joining me today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You're doing a great job. Hopefully, hear from you soon, man.
Thank
Bye
you
bye.
so much.